Hello, everyone! Welcome to the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show. I'm your co host, Kate Purcell. Over here we got David. Say hi, David.
Hi, David.
So, this is potentially a very, it's a very new tech stream, which means things might be not going great. I've got my brand new Stream Deck set up, first time. Um, I've also, thanks to Jeff from the Emergency Power Podcast, I've got a brand new mic, which I love. But if anything is, a little off, a little funky, please let us know. We appreciate your wonderful chat. David, what is this thing that we're doing here today?
Um, Welcome to the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show, where each week we talk about tabletop gaming. We talk about stuff for beginners, stuff for advanced players, stuff for GMs. And we encourage everyone from all walks of life to find the games that you enjoy and participate in them.
It's beautifully said. I am also fighting currently with my. I did a smart and I didn't. Oh, maybe it's this. I forgot to start the music, and now the music is being very difficult, which is fun.
One
Really
day we
fun.
will have a stream where the only thing we do is have you list as many Pokemon as you can off the top of your head.
Mewtwo, Tentacruel, Aerodactyl, Almanite, Slowpoke, Pidgeot, Arbok. That's all, folks. I'm a nerd. I could do the whole original 150.
Yeah, but they're what, over 1,000 now?
Not quite 1,000. Not quite 1,000. Maybe it's.
Ooh.
But yes, thank you for that succinct explanation. Um, why not 151? I mean, because the original Pokerap didn't include Mew. So, I mean, I can do the 151 because Mew is one of my favorite Pokemon, but it was not in the original. But yes, I am Kay. You can also find me here every Tuesday. You can also every other Wednesday, and that other Wednesday happens to be tomorrow. Find me on the Emergency Power Podcast. New episodes come out every other Wednesday, so it's going to be the 3rd, the 17th, and the 31st this month. We got 3 episodes this month. It's pretty cool. It's a Starfinder game. We're going to talk a little bit about how I learned Starfinder for this podcast today, because, you know, I'm assuming there was Mewtwo, but not Mew. Yes, Mewtwo was in the original. It was in the original Pokerap, but not Mew or Mew. Um, on August 11th and August 25th, there is an unannounced series that I'm going to be playing in on an unannounced channel. I'm really excited to tell you all about this. There should be promos coming soon, TM. Um, Also, I hear the spatiality on this mic is really, really good, so you'll have to tell me. I apparently can get very different tones in my voice depending upon, so, you know. Hey, Candace, how are you today? Um, you can also find me on Sunday, August 14th. I'm going to be on Gamer Mom Luna's channel talking. She also runs a talk show, TTRPG Talk Show. I'm going to be on with the crew from the Emergency Power podcast talking about uh, Emergency Power and Starfinder and the adventures that my wonderful asshole soul has been up to. Because they've been up to some stuff, and we just played a game of Galactic Phone, however that's said the other night, that absolutely broke me. And coming up at the very, very end of the month, on the 29th, better audio! Huzzah! Thank you. Yes, thank you, Jeff from Emergency Power Podcast, for loaning me his mic. It is directional. Apparently, you don't hear the sirens. You can barely hear my clicky clacky keyboard. Ugh. Um, 29th, I'm going to be on Halls of the Mad King over on the Red Hare Inn. This is going to be a 3-part horror campaign, and I may have ordered lots of accessories to wear for this one. It's going to be fun. It's a horror. I love horror. I haven't gotten to play horror in a long time. I'm really excited to play this. But that is my to-do. David's here. And is Logan my GM? Yes! I am. Oh no, Logan is not my GM. We have a special guest GM. I thought it was Logan at first, and then I found out it was someone else. And I'm just very excited. I'm just very excited. It's gonna be a great time. Tell me if y'all can hear that siren, because that is a very loud siren.
Unfortunately, we can definitely hear the siren.
I'm assuming it's not as loud as it used to be, though. Maybe. It's incredibly loud in my place. But
Yep.
a smidge. Okay, well, we can fight with it, but not nearly as loud. That makes me happy. You know, when you're in the heart of the city, there's only so much you can do.
Right.
But that is all that I have to plug. We are here today. We have gathered here today to discuss.
Wait, question. When are we plugging the thing that we have upcoming?
Once we have things confirmed.
Okay, because every week it's like, David, what are you doing? And I finally get to say, well, this is what I'm working on, but we're not quite there yet.
Yep, we're not quite there yet. Okay, let's see if this will behave now. Maybe. Ha ha ha. David, you can't tell, but we have music. Just makes it just a little bit more cozy. Yes, soon. Very soon. And it's also a little bit on topic because today our topic of discussion is how to get into a new TTRPG system. I've actually had like 4 or 5 people talk to me about this. Hey, thanks, Candace. 4 or 5 people have been talking to me like, hey, I need to learn a new system. And we talked about this a little bit with Carrie last week. Because most of us come into TTRPGs in one system and tend to stay with it for a while. Not everyone, but when you're ready to branch out or when you're invited to a series that's going to be a little bit different, how do you do that? Because as Carrie said, that first system is always the hardest. So David, do you want to kick it off or do you want me to lead the charge?
Yeah, so many people are in the space now because of Critical Role and because of the isolation and lockdowns we've had, and then also the growth of technology. Like, there was a time when you couldn't buy a webcam anywhere on the internet because they were all sold out everywhere. And so now we have this new form of interconnectivity, which means that you don't necessarily have to get 5 people at your house on a Saturday night to play D&D or to play any tabletop game. You can do it remotely. But a lot of people have gotten into the space because of Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, and Critical Role, and the system that many people default to as the default tabletop experience, to the point whereby people use D&D like people use the word Kleenex or use the word Xerox. Right. Nintendo filed a lawsuit many years ago to prevent companies from referring to video game consoles in general as Nintendos. And I'm sure there are many of us who still have parents who are like, are you on that Nintendo again?
Yep.
Like, I haven't had a Nintendo in generations.
I also have to throw out fun little fact. Critical Role did not start in 5e. Mercer sat down and ran a game in Pathfinder for all of his friends, and when they went on Geek and Sundry and started streaming it, Geek and Sundry convinced them to switch over to 5e, which is why Taliesin is always like, fiddling with his character because gunslingers are a thing in Pathfinder and we're not in 5e, so they had to homebrew it all. So yeah, I'm sure Wizards of the Coast owes Geek and Sundry a whole lot. Like,
Yep.
Pathfinder could have been the thing that's bringing everyone in right now.
So many of us started with 5e or started with AD&D, the second edition, or
Pathfinder.
Or Pathfinder, like these prominent systems. And it's important to remember that just because it's popular doesn't mean it's a monolith. And there are all sorts of systems, some bigger, some smaller, and a lot of brilliant people working in the space building new games, including D'Angelo. And so it is extremely worthwhile to explore these systems for a lot of reasons that we are going to get into. Sauce is here.
Hey, Sauce.
But I do want to start off with, if you are happy with your with the default system that you showed up with, great. Please still step out of your comfort zone and run something else, even if you know nothing about it. At least have a look. Go to a game shop. A friend of mine lives near a game shop, and he showed up, and there were like 6 tables playing, and only one of them was playing Dungeons and Dragons, which he found fascinating, and which I find interesting as well. And like I said, there are a lot of reasons to branch out, which we'll get into, but it's important to play other systems.
And even if you're, pretty happy with your default system, you might realize that something that you don't like about your system, you don't actually dislike in tabletop in general. You just don't like how that system handles it. I really like, and you can throw all the tea and all the shade you want at me for this. It's fine. Like, I actually really enjoy 5e. I do. I think it's a pretty flexible system. But I'm the first to say combat's pretty clunky. If I run a game, combat is there for a reason. I'm not just gonna be like, hey, we're just gonna do this thing and it's just a module of fighting. Because unless you're doing like a level 20 or doing like a meat grinder kind of thing, which can be fun if that's what you're there for, but if you're playing a campaign with me, if you're in one of my games, I'm assuming that you're like me, probably a little bit more into story, and just all of the combat can be a little much if it's 3 or 4 combats per session. It's just not my jam. That said, combat in other systems can be pretty fun. I actually enjoy it. I'm a little sad that my Starfinder game, let me back that up. Pathfinder 2e has a really cool action economy system for their combat. Hey crew, you get like 3 moves, you get like 3 blocks of action, and you can distribute those among things however much you want, and it makes it so that you can get pretty creative. And I also think that, like, I believe, chat nerds, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know Pathfinder 2e at all. I've only played Pathfinder 1, but I've been reading up on it. I believe that in Pathfinder, reactions aren't even a thing until a certain level. Unless I think Fighter gets it early. So that means combat in Pathfinder is a whole lot more mobile to start with, because you don't have to worry about leaving the threatened range. So they're moving all around, and then you can be like, I'm gonna do a full attack. Like, there's all sorts of different ways for you to distribute your stuff. That's pretty cool. I listened to a whole thing about it, and I was super excited to play it, then I'm like, oh, it's not in Starfinder. But that's part of the reason we're discussing this, is because you should look at other systems and see what you like about it and what you don't. And maybe all you take away is one thing, but look, David and I think 3 episodes in a row now, we've gone on about the luck mechanic that we encountered in Backwater, which is so cool. It's such a simple, elegant mechanic. And now whenever I make run a game, I'm like, pick your luck, even or odd. Just when you build your character, write in luck, write in even or odd. It's brilliant, simple, elegant, and I wouldn't have. David and I had discussed we need to figure out luck. How do we fix luck in 5e? We were ready to dedicate a big chunk of an episode to just discussing, hey, this is one of the things 5e needs. We found it. It's done.
Yep.
It's elegant.
Problem solved. Super
easy to explain. Your captions thought you said table salt.
But there, we did a whole episode on like these are things from systems that we find imperfect or like unhelpful. Like, if I wanted to stage a stagecoach robbery in a Western themed D&D game, how are the mechanics of horseback mobile combat going to work? And the answer is it doesn't. I'd have to build something out new in order to make it work. And there is something to be said for reinventing the wheel. Like, there are other systems, and I'm going to have to do some exploring I need to take my own advice and play more different types of systems, to figure out, okay, at what point do I stop modifying 5e or like Pathfinder or Vampire the Masquerade or Urban Shadows or any of these other systems, and then just switch to a different system? Because the like tossing out alignment or the potion rule and little fixes like that are great, are easy for D&D. But again, if I want to do a stagecoach or I want to do mounted combat, then it's not really built for that. And you gotta move to something else. And part of why we wanted to do this episode is because of that line. Like we've had many discussions about different systems and what we like and what we don't like, and we've talked to other people, and we've had people say, hey, I haven't played blank, or I haven't played 5e. Oh my god, what do I do? And we've also talked to talent where it says, hey, we're going to run this thing, or someone we know is going to run this thing, and then they come to us and they go, oh, that's the system I've never heard of before. I don't even know if I should sign up for this. The answer is yes, you should sign up for it. You should learn new systems. And the important takeaway from that is, regardless of how forgiving a system may or may not be, your game master and the other players and the people that are around you are eager to play with you and eager to bring you in. So everyone is going to be, or at least really should be, and if you're not, I will find you.
Yes, do not
really
be
helpful
gatekeeper.
Right, really helpful, and really patient with someone who's new to a system or just new to tabletop in general.
So, as David knows about me, I tend to be a little bit. By the way, y'all, let me know if my volume is too low compared to everything else. I'm watching meters and stuff, but it's always so hard to tell when, we're actually live. I like to research stuff, so I tried. I followed the advice, and I just I basically. The first bit of advice is your GM is going to be your best resource to learning a new system, because the best way to learn a new system is to play it and to go. I'm slightly quiet? Okay. Let me know if that is better. Your best resource is going to be your GM. You find a GM, even if it's not the GM you're going to be playing the campaign or the stream with. Find a GM, hop into a game. One-shots are easy. There's all sorts of modules. I basically took that advice, but also for me, so we're coming to this assuming you already know one system, but I'm also going to say some of my advice applies to both. If you're completely new to TTRPGs or if you've only played one system, I went, okay, what do I need to know to build a character? And I went and hit the internet super hard and came back with a head full of all of the wrong and bad advice. Because I came in going, okay, multi-classing is like cheating and bad. People don't like it when you multi-class it. Don't ask for things above and beyond or different from the rule book, like work within the rule book. Like, I came in afraid that every little thing I was going to ask for or any little thing I wanted to do was weird or bad, because I fell down that rabbit hole was the first thing I found. So doing research is good, but be aware that it's very easy to fall into bad research and gatekeepers and people who really want the game to play exactly like they played it in high school, or else you're breaking their favorite game and ruining their childhood. So if you research with a little bit of salt. Just a little bit of skepticism. I say this a lot, and I don't know how true this is just for me versus universally. If you wanting to learn a new system, go find an actual play. Just watch some people playing it, and hey crew. It doesn't have to be the best actual play ever. I learned 5e by watching Critical Role, basically. Like, David will confirm. I had played Pathfinder, I was still a little iffy on it, hopped into 5e, like, I was really iffy, confused, unsure and then within, a month?
Yep.
I started watching it during the pandemic. I'd played a little bit before, but after about, we're doing the dab. After about 1 month of watching an actual play, I had just, absorbed it all like a sponge. Go find an actual play.
In that 1 month, let us be clear, she watched 200 hours of Critical Role, so, jot that down.
We all had something we had to do during the pandemic, right? That was my escape.
For some people, it was Tiger King.
Now, here's the thing. Yeah, I did Tiger King as well. Pandemic I had a lot of... Can confirm, watching AP will help you understand a new system. That is really good for crunchy or rules-dependent series. It's also really good for just seeing how people usually interact around a table. Especially if you're a brand new player, I really encourage you to watch an actual play just so you can get a feel for how games flow. Because when I'm GMing, I can teach you the rules. I can teach you to roll. If you are weird or not great or just interrupting everyone, don't understand turns or sharing a spotlight, then you're going to be a harder player for me to teach. So if you're talking to someone brand new, go watch an AP. If you're trying to learn, especially a rules structured system, APs are great. Hey, Chris! Most people went into debt to a raccoon. I did that as well. Yes, table etiquette is so important. Hey, Domo! For rules light systems, actually, that really goes back to find a good GM. Find a table to play with, because rules light systems are rules light. And the way that I run a rules light, I might run the exact same rules light system and the game will feel incredibly different because it's rules light and so much of it is controlled by the GM. My raccoon was in Spiritfarer. Spiritfarer was an excellent game.
Another important aspect of why, and it's actually something that, yep, there's your boy, and it's something that it took some time for me to wrap my head around. So Kay has been in gaming journalism for many years, and we've been gaming pretty much the same stretch of time, and she and I get to talking about video games, and the Venn of games played between Kay and myself, those circles barely touch. And she's played just as much video game as I have, if not more.
It's
When you think
basically
about her
Stardew
shiny
Valley.
duck,
Like our
right,
crossover is
right,
Stardew Valley.
right.
And Graveyard Keeper. I
And
dragged you kicking and screaming into Graveyard Keeper.
yep,
And then you never left.
and then it's Stardew Valley only happened after, and so we got to talking, and different people want things out of their video game experience. That's why some people, will blow $100,000 on Diablo Immortal. It's why some people pay hackers to give them aimbots. It's, um, why some people love the grind of games like League of Legends. And there are some people who love the grind of games like Stardew Valley. And then there are games that, in theory, are actually relaxing, but I haven't found one yet. But there is a similar approach to tabletop. So Kay and I love telling stories and great characters and making these big worlds. But we've also, um, right. It's why some people murder monsters so they could wear their skins to murder their siblings. Absolutely. Um, uh, Also, Monster Hunter, great series. Not for everyone, but I highly recommend. Uh, but in different tabletop things that we've done, we've run into people where what they're looking for is that core dungeon crawly experience where fetish is the right word, where you do the dungeon crawl, you kill the bad guys, and then you get the stuff at the end, and then you take the stuff that you got, the cool thingamajigs that you got, into the next dungeon, and then go down there, kill everything, and get more cool stuff. Like that's what they're looking for. And for me, the dungeon crawly experience isn't necessarily like the most appealing. Um, but there is, like I said, Kay and I more lean into oh, there's our other co-host, into the storytelling aspect of things. But there's a place where those things can meet, where you could have an Indiana Jones style adventure into these places. But the point is, it is important to experience new systems because different systems are catered toward different gameplay experiences. Like, there are crunchy systems that are extremely combat focused, and everything on your character sheet is how good you can run, jump, shoot, and fight. And there are other systems that are super crunchy where it's all like Vampire the Masquerade. It's about who you are, who your clan is, and what you can do to interact with people and to influence things. But it's not necessarily a combat heavy system. And then it's a much more interpersonal system. And then on the flip side, you also have rules light systems that are combat focused, and rules light systems that are um, interpersonal focused. Like uh, Candace and Kay ran the Rainbow Roll, and the Thirsty Sword Lesbian module and system is a interpersonal focused system, and I would not be able to run that style of game in D&D or in Pathfinder. So having experience with different systems doesn't just open you up to, I am this type of gamer and these are the types of games that I want to play, but also um, opens up the different type of storytelling experiences you can have.
And I really enjoy being creative, and no matter what I do, like I think David will confirm. Anything I do, I usually find a weird way to do it, or a weird approach, or just what is something that is not the usual. So I know a lot of people who don't like D&D, who do not enjoy 5e. And they're like, why do you like 5e? Like, well, number one, it's a pretty flexible system that most people know. So I can walk in and say, hey, we're running 5e, here's the homebrew that we're using. At some points, I'm going to say we're not, like, it's simple. Everyone gets that. It's pretty easy. But also because we have a shared language and everyone knows the basics of 5e. By and large, if I come in and do something weird or quirky or different, it's a very easy shorthand for people to go, oh, she's doing something interesting. That said, rules light systems can be an excellent way to let you be very creative in a different way. There are almost no rules. In fact, I find rules light systems a little bit stressful. Because how am I supposed to break the rules if there aren't them? If there aren't rules, how do I break them? I also feel like more crunchy systems give me a little bit more control, because I understand if I do X, Y happens. So I know the risk here versus the risk here. Whereas in a more rules light system, or a more, because I feel like Mothership is this to an extent. There are some systems where dice rolls or GMs, the system itself is crunchy, but the result is decided by either a roll table or a GM. And those I find a little bit stressful, because I want to understand the risk before I take action. So for me, it's harder to do a horror series or a combat-heavy rules-light system, because I want to take a calculated risk. Whereas with Thirsty Sword Lesbians, it was really fun to just be like, well, okay, the results are going to be, if there's a negative thing, it's going to be character driven. It's going to be personality driven. And that's something, I'm a strong enough role player that I can work my way around it. Whereas if we're playing a very, numbers, dice, crunch heavy system, and something goes really bad, I have to know my toolkit really, really well. And if I don't know that system extremely well, it's more difficult for me to figure out how to outwit the situation, or the GM. Sometimes I have to outwit a GM. You're not supposed to. When you play horror, sometimes the GM is not on your side. Generally, my thing is, if you're playing a tabletop, the GM is on your team, but every so often in horror, the GM is not on your team.
Right.
Even if just for a moment.
And that that dovetails into a very good point. Kay never has a problem coming up with a character.
I got too many.
Kay is full of characters. But take Vampire the Masquerade. I sat down with Vampire and was like, I've never thought about playing a vampire character. Oh my god, what am I gonna do? And the way Vampire is set up is it gives you choices that help shape your character, that help you lead you in the right direction, that help funnel you towards a character that is representative of what you want to play before you even know it. So, you sit there and you go, oh my god, what am I going to do? And then they go, okay, well, the first thing you have to do is you have to pick a clan. And so you sit and you look through the clans and you see who's about what, and you go with what appeals to you. And then, that unlocks your next option. Okay, this clan has these different races and these different backgrounds and these different things you can do. And that just helps lead you into the character that you want.
Not the clan.
And so,
it is not that clan.
listen, Wu-Tang Clan is not to be challenged. But yeah, so different systems give you different ways to inhabit your character. And just like K is, oh my god, I have 10 characters with 30-page backstories apiece. there are other people who are like, I kind of want to play a guy who shoots things. And depending on the system, it can give you the tools to build that out. And then that too lends to other systems that you play in, and other types of games you play in.
For me, it's interesting because when I start a new system, I actually tend to create I let the system itself guide what character I'm going to play. With 5e, the first real 5e character I played, I'm sure I was doing, but the first one I really like built out. I was going through the manual, and I found that like part of the lore was that orcs and half-orcs found halflings to be lucky. Or not halflings.
Gnomes.
No.
No.
What's the non-Tolkien term for halflings? Or is it halfling? Hobbit. Okay, halfling is correct. I was worried I'd grabbed hobbit. I had grabbed the wrong thing and then stopped myself. I'd heard that half-orcs and orcs found halflings to be lucky. Whew. Whew. Y'all, it's real warm here. And so I kind of took that little bit of lore and like plugged it in and went, okay, like, what would this character be then? And that's how I built out Ido, who was a terror, but a fun little terror. Similarly, when I started Starfinder, I actually started out wanting to play a Technomancer. I was going to be a spellcaster. Then I realized I was coming in at level 6. And that's a lot of spells, especially for a new system, especially at a level like, But I was going to stick to it because I had read in the Technomancer that they store their spells in something. So I decided my character was going to have tattoos, and they were storing their spells in those tattoos. And I wanted it to not be, culturally appropriative designs, but something like beautiful and flashy where they could, like, it was clear. I wanted everything about this character design to be important to the character. I wanted them to be flashy and beautiful and eye-catching, but nothing was just thrown in. Every single thing about their design had a reason. And then once I was leaning towards this character who is very dark and light, like struggling quietly with these different aspects of themselves. And then as I was trying to figure out how to build this heckin' Technomancer, I stumbled onto the Solarian, and that class fit so perfectly with the concept that I had that it was an immediate, like, nope, we're going, I mean, it's basically a paladin. They're like a Jedi paladin, basically. And the tattoos stayed because I had decided they were a wanderer, and they'd been nomadic for so long that they were keeping record of all the places they've been. So it's cool that was a nod back to their original class, but it's still relevant and important to them, even though that's not a function of it. So when learning a new system, I often kind of go deep, and then I root part of my character in that. And after that, that's when I start playing. After that, I've got too many characters, and I start retrofitting different characters into different systems. So I'd actually built a character for 5e that I've never gotten to play this character, and I'm so excited to play them, and I'm actually going to be playing them in Mothership. And so I'm figuring out, how do I retrofit this whole 5e backstory? And the answer is I'm not going to retrofit it perfectly, but I'm going to be retrofitting this character in. See, I don't have that much of a problem with backup characters, because like David said, I've got a whole list. There's a line, so I'm like, oh well, it would really suck if Roxy died. But can you imagine the chaos if we dropped Vimond into this, David? Oh my goodness. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Did you have another point, or do you want me to, I don't want to, I've talked for a hot second, and I don't want to.
Nope, continue.
Okay. So, all of that said, that's all really good for systems that are crunchy, super rules dependent, or are out there. A couple of us on the stream or in the chat have been lucky enough to get to like play a system or play test a system that's not out there. I got to be on a stream where I played Emerald Templars for the first time. It was a playtest. Emerald Templars is a successful Kickstarter series by D'Angelo, but it's not out there, so I couldn't watch an AP because it didn't exist. And even if I watched, I think there's a couple APs, but the rules have been adjusted, so they were different. Originally, it was using the original APs were doing a completely different playset, just like Into the Motherlands was originally Cortex, and now it's not Cortex. They're doing their own thing. So even if you go back and watch those old rules, again, with those kinds of systems, I would say stress about it less, because whoever is running the game probably is working on it or is working with the person who's working on it, and they understand that you don't and can't know the rules. So don't let that stress you out. Have fun with it. Understand you're going to ask questions and make mistakes. I am pretty constantly with a new system or a system I'm not familiar with saying like, hey, I got a question. Does this work? I do this, I mean, Paizo games just in general. In Starfinder, I'm like, okay, I think the answer's no. But if I have a move action and then I have a standard action that lets me move as a standard action, can I move and then do my standard action which gives me movement? You're gonna say no. You're saying yes? I get 180 feet of movement? Cool.
That's a lot of movement. 180 feet.
Actually,
60 yards.
I think it was 120 once I'd done all of the math. There was also a fly involved, defying gravity. Adam may have needed a minute to cry after that session because it was our first combat, and I did all of the things. I went Super Saiyan. Y'all, the Emergency Power podcast is really fun. Watching me go, does this break the game? Yes, but legally? Cool. Again, and then the other thing that it really is rely on your GM is rules light systems, because we had 3 different GMs for Thirsty Sword Lesbians, the Rainbow Roll, and we had 3 radically different playstyles. And in fact, I think Candace, who's hanging out in chat, the magnificent Candace, their storytelling between the first and the final episodes had already evolved and changed. And it was great. It was amazing to see. So, yeah, Rules Light. Anything else, David, on Rules Light or Unreleased?
No, but since we've covered a lot of the why we should dig into the how, and your point of actual plays, great idea. But also, what sprang to my mind is there are tons of people who are interested in tabletop who haven't necessarily gotten into it yet, or have only played find someone who plays a different system. Ask them what they like about it. Ask them what they don't like about it. Like, if you want D&D slander to the ends of the earth, literally any gaming shop has a guy in there who's like, D&D is the worst thing to happen to the human race ever. And that includes like every major war over the past 1,000 years. And you're like, okay, bud, you're a little intense. But they can give you the benefit of, okay, this is what I hate about D&D. This is why such and such is not as good as this other thing. So go and talk to people. Go online. Go to your game shops. Get into Discord servers where people run TTRPGs. Join our server where we will be running TTRPGs, and be part of those discussions and ask questions of the community, because in a room of a dozen people you'll find a dozen different experiences with different systems. And as you talk to people and interact and find out the pros and cons of different things, it could help point you towards a system you may not have ever heard of.
And you might jump into a new system that you're really excited about and find out you don't like it that much. And that's fine. That's
Hmm.
good. The important thing, in my humble opinion, is if you play a system and you don't like it, sit back and ask yourself why. Because there have definitely been, like, I've hopped in and I've been like, I don't like that system. And it's like, why didn't you like it? And I start thinking about it. I'm like, actually, I think the table vibe was really weird. Maybe it wasn't the system. Maybe it was the table. Um, there were some things where I was like, I have finished playing some systems and been mad. Like, been actually angry. And then I have to sit back and I'm like, why? I'm like, because I really liked these 2 or 3 elements. But there was this other thing or these 2 things that just I really didn't like it. And I felt like that so diminished the experience. So, if you really want to learn to be nimble, figure out why. Not just, oh, I didn't like that system. Like, figure out why. I know for me, and I need to play more of them so I can figure out exactly why, I tend to not like dice pool systems. And I think a large part of it for me is there's too much for me to roll for and keep track of every time. I have to every time figure out how many dice am I rolling. I then have to get the right number. I have to roll them. Often I have to keep track of there's a certain die, or if there's too many of the same, or too that. To me, that is more intensive and more math and more brain power required than roll a d20 and figure out your modifiers. Because I'm just dealing with the d20 and then it's just simple math. Otherwise, I feel like I'm doing a word problem. I'm sure there are dice pool systems that are less stressful. Or maybe if I just play them more and get used to it. Because I didn't come from dice pool country. I came from d20 country. Sooner or later, I'm going to have to play the game that has a dice pool with d20s, and to me that's just that causes me so much anxiety, the thought of trying to do math with d20 dice pools. And yet I'm like, cool, Starfinder, let's go.
Um, and speaking of fetishes, that brings up an important point. Dice. The TTRPG community love their dice.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Every hardcore person I know has a sack, a satchel, a duffel bag of dice. And even my dice collection is growing. But it's great because there's so many systems that utilize different types of dice. And I've been over at someone's house and they're like, there are 5 of us, we are all nerds, let's play some sort of tabletop game. And they go, well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, none of us have like d20s, what are we going to do? It's like, well, we have to go out for beer anyway. And the next thing I know, we're in Target buying 6-sided die and then coming back and running a game that's based off of um, having a number of 6-sided die. And so you have different games, or you have different systems that use different types of dice and use dice differently. Um, and so it puts you in a position where you can just be like, like, instead of shooting craps, let's do this. And that's really cool. It offers a lot of flexibility. And so, if you put 2 or 3 systems in your back pocket and, you show up to Kay's house and you're like, oh man, this dice pool game is great. and then Kay looks at you, staring daggers at you over her Manhattan. Then you go, "There's another system I know how to play," and that sort of expands your what you personally can bring to other people's tables.
Also, there's different challenges to entering different types of games, and you gotta. It helps to understand the challenge of each system. So it's funny. Most of you know B. Dave. B. Dave Walters is one of my favorite GMs. I want to run games like B. Dave. B. Dave is like, the barrier to entry for Vampire the Masquerade is so much lower than D&D. Because in Vampire the Masquerade, the corner store is the corner store, and it's there, and the city is the city, and it's there. And you just know it. Whereas in D&D, you have to be like, okay, I'm an elf or I'm an orc, and there's this. It is the exact opposite for me. Because I can't, like, just playing and trying to remember where things are in a real city, I'm not good with real world maps or directions anyway. So it's easier for me to be like, cool, I'm an elf. What are the basic rules about an elf? Cool, than it is for me to go, okay, so we're going to this place. Let me pull up a map. How far is that? Do we have, like, to me, that sucks fun out. But also, Vampire has a lot of other barriers to entry, which are also part of what makes it such a cool system, which is that there's so much history in Vampire, and so much of it is tied to real-world history. But if you don't know about the First Inquisition, how are you going to be ready for the Second Inquisition? And yes, the clans will help you build your character, but once you pick a clan, there's centuries of established lore within each of those clans, and depending upon how lore-heavy your table and your game and your GM is going to be, you may or may not need to know all of that. So, part of what I'm saying is, if you're picking up a new system, actual plays are great. Talk to other people who have played it and start asking questions about, like, what does this table do? What do I need to be aware of? What's the hardest part? So that you can be prepared. You can know what's up. When I played VTM, I tried to go super hard and learn everything I could about the lore. The problem is, the lore's changed a couple times over. So trying to figure out, and a lot of these websites aren't the best about clarifying, are we discussing this before or after the update? This is Tryndamere, but there's like 3 or 4 different versions of Tryndamere, so which one is it? They don't say, because it's just Tryndamere. So again, a lot of GMs also will play with the rule of cool. A lot of GMs will talk about, like, okay, we're using this mechanic, however, comma. So start talking to your GM. Hey, I'm trying to figure this out. A lot of times, so with Vampire the Masquerade, like, character creation, it's really difficult. I don't know anyone who's played VTM who will not straight up say it's difficult. The book is not laid out in a very friendly way for new players. With Starfinder, with 5e, Pathfinder, combat is difficult and complex. And you can learn that around the table, and you can learn a lot of it from actual plays. But good golly, we live in an age of the internet. Google it. Find a YouTube video. There are so many amazing channels that will talk about this is how this works. And the cool thing is, if you're not sure, ask. If you make a mistake, keep going. The internet will tell you if you made a mistake. And if you make a mistake, especially if you're doing it like, if you're on a home game, it's cool. Oh, hey, y'all, we did this wrong last time. This has happened in a couple games where I've been in, where the rules are all here, like, the rule for this move is here, but then there's an addendum that's like 4 pages over and not referenced because they expect you to have read it all. And so you do the thing, you finish the session, and then someone is like, hey, everyone, we made a mistake. And it's like, okay, cool, going forward, this is how it works from now on. You got a free pass in that. Don't feel bad about that. If you're a GM, or if you're on a streamed game, you know, again, the internet will tell you when you mess up. And don't let that completely destroy or derail you, because you're not playing the D&D. You're not playing the Pathfinder. You're not playing the Starfinder. You're not playing the VTM. You're playing that game with your friends. You're playing, as soon as you start building out your characters and your world and your plot hooks, it is your version of it. And in David's version of 5e, my paladin has to roll a d20 whenever she does a healing spell. And that's just how it works in that version of the game. Remember y'all, even the official Dungeons and Dragons movie uses homebrew. The druid wild shapes into an owlbear.
Yeah, that's not a... Okay, so apparently I need to watch the trailer so that I can be angry about something.
So here's the thing. I'm gonna sidetrack us real quick into the D&D movie because I'm excited. I'm cautiously excited for it. I'm gonna go see it in theaters, provided things don't, provided everything. The tiefling is the druid. The tiefling, I wish the tiefling had eyes or fangs, like tieflings are supposed to, but outside of that, the tiefling is perfect, and I love her, and I'm kind of glad she doesn't have eyes and fangs, because I'm not sure I would have survived the trailer if she... Anyhow. Yeah! So, I want to just give an official shout out to whoever named Chris Pine's character. Whatever brilliant person knew exactly what they were doing and slipped it under the radar, and to every executive who didn't catch it, who wasn't paying attention, who just rubber stamped it. Because watching the official D&D account tweet, Chris Pine is Edgin the Bard. Yes, we know he is. What's his name and what's his class?
Wow! Oh, so okay, so I've started watching the trailer, and my first thought is, oops, all thieves.
I mean, it's a heist-ish movie. I'm excited. I'm gonna go see it in the theaters, provided the world, we're not gonna jinx anything.
Provided my monkeypox doesn't flare up.
Right. I'm going to bring alcohol with me, or go to a place with alcohol, and I will either drink because it's good, or I will drink until it's good. It's gonna be one of those. I don't know if that makes any more sense than the druid doing so. Prince consultant on the film and was okay with it. Chris Pine is edging almost everyone. Yeah, hey Vivian, that trailer, there's a lot to appreciate in that trailer. Like, it moves very fast. We got Mr. Bridgerton, I don't remember the name of that show. It wasn't good. I watched it all. I'm glad to see his face again. David is... I'm loving the real-time reactions to this. But yes, while he finishes watching a YouTube video, whatever it is, when I was trying to build my VTM character, I watched and I will say this, I watched 3 different videos on how to build a VTM character, and then still had to get help. When I was trying to build my Solarian, I love David's face journeys are just one of my favorite things in the world. When I was trying to build my Solarian, I just went down Reddit black holes and things that had changed, and it was Pathfinder versus Starfinder was really confusing because there's items and feats in Pathfinder, and there are items and feats in Starfinder that have the same name but do different things. I still had to go get help. And then, even having gotten help and having been explained, I went into the game and made a mistake on some of the rules. That's also kind of what you do in Paizo game. Like, I swear half the fun of Paizo games are arguing about the rules. But that's a whole other conversation. Look up things, look up the basics. Again, if you're like, what kind of game is this? There's usually a quick start or find some kind of actual play. Like, for some, like Thirsty Sword Lesbians, super rules light. You just find the little thing. They're like, pick a character, pick your thing. Like, you can throw together a character in basically no time and hop into a game and have a great time. At some point, I am going to make David run Dish Pit Witches for us. And I am so excited. I am so excited. Hugh Grant is this generation's Jeremy Irons. How you doing, Ty? So, David, now that you have graced us with a face journey of the D&D movie trailer.
For one, Michelle Rodriguez is in it. I will go see it.
Look, do you remember when I just messaged you in all caps, asexual bi panic?
Yes, I recall.
Basically everyone in this. There's the unnamed dude on the horse with like the curly hair when he's like, hey, what is that? He's like, oh, it's an owlbear. I'm like, who is that? I like him too.
Yeah, so I was talking to Zycram, and I had seen the trailer, had no idea who was in the movie. And he's talking, he's like, oh man, it's that one dude from Romantic Comedies. And I was like, boom, Hugh Grant. And he was like, huh? No, that can't be Hugh Grant. Screenshot. It's Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant looks like he's having the time of his life. There's a mimic. There's a gelatinous cube.
There's a displacer beast, my favorite. We got multiple dragons. The fat dragon. I love the fat dragon.
Listen. So for one, it's being released in March, which means it's probably gonna be bad. But it's a good sign that it's not being released in January, because then that would be the worst movie of all time. Yeah, and the chick from It, like, who played listen.
One of my favorites. Someone who was trying to start up the rules as written thing was like, so I know some people are going to have opinions about this being the new face of tieflings, and they like post a screenshot of the tiefling. And outside of the eyes aren't there, and she doesn't have fangs, but outside of that, like, she's very much tiefling. And someone replies with like, no tail, no tiefling. And I'm like, watch it again! She has a tail! I really like tieflings, y'all.
So I'm glad that it is better than a January release film, but still going to be terrible. I can't wait. I don't watch a lot of trailers, especially for movies that I know I'm going to see already. But yeah, I knew I was going to go see the D&D movie because D&D movie, and I like film. But ooh-wee, is that, yeah, buckle up, because that's going to be a very good time. And
one way or the
will
other.
Be memed into eternity.
I swear, it is not, like, it looks like from the pacing and the sense of humor that they're putting into it. I am going to be so disappointed if at some point they're not all having to play dead, like laying there hiding, playing dead somewhere, and the people they're hiding from walk in and say, it's very dark. If one of them doesn't give themselves away by screaming, I have dark vision.
Right!
I will commit a murder. But yes, it's going to be a good time, one way or the other. I cannot wait. Everyone in that movie is nice to look at.
Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that.
Top-notch cast.
And yes, Chris Pine is Edgin the Bard.
Ooh-wee.
I was It's just
Ooh-y. That is, ooh, they just sprinted into that joke. Good grief.
um. So yes. Now, again, trying to get this back on track because I've gone so far off and I don't want to come back because I just want to like fangirl about. I feel like it's going to be too fast paced and too action packed of a movie to actually have any story. But you know, I feel like if I need like a D&D character deep story type thing, I can just go watch Our Flag Means Death because that's the most D&D thing I've ever seen.
Another thing I need to sit down and watch.
I just got to watch the first couple episodes, and yeah, I'm addicted. There's a scene, David, when I messaged David in all caps when a certain thing happened, and I said, "This show is brilliant," and he's going to get to the part and know exactly what the part is. And I'm saying the part very deliberately.
Maybe I should spin the
I'm sure
tonight.
Candace knows. But hey, JD lady, how you doing? So I'm gonna circle back because when I was playing D&D and I decided, so here's the other big jump that you have to make sometimes. The drawing of the part. Deadpool was dumped in Feb because the head of Fox was against making it. Oh, Deadpool was so good. The other big jump that you have to make, whether you know the system well or not, is DMing. There is definitely an art to learning to DM, and I'm kind of an idiot, and I didn't stream my first GMing experience, but I did record it, and then I streamed my second. And that's fine. That's no pressure. It's totally cool. When I was trying to reach out to people, so this is part of the reason that I personally wanted to do this episode, was when I started reaching out to people and reaching out to the internet and like, okay, I want to run 5e as a GM. How do I learn the system so that I can run this really well? And a whole bunch of very well-meaning people all gave me the same answer, which was, don't worry about the rules, go take an improv class. Which, to an extent, is not wrong. Being able to improv and keep the story going and react on the spot is very, very important. But also, you gotta learn the gosh darn rules, especially if you're trying to do it on stream. If you're doing it at home, your friends might tell you mess up, and then you say, well, guess what? It's my game. We're not using that rule. Or you say, okay, well, from now on. So that's part of the reason I wanted to have this, which is, again, for me, it's kind of a ranked order of find an AP if it exists. If it's a system that's out there and is not incredibly rules light. Even if it's rules light, maybe, but find an actual play and just start watching. Google videos. There are so many amazing videos out there that will break down things, and they'll be in a whole series with chapter things, because I had to, like, in Starfinder, attacks of opportunity can happen if you... I hope I have this right, and if not, I know the internet will tell me. If you have a ranged weapon, and you fire a ranged weapon at someone, and an enemy has a melee weapon is within 5 feet of you, that triggers an attack of opportunity for them. I think there's something like that that is very... And so I had to spend a whole lot of time just trying to figure out reactions and attacks of opportunity. And to this day, the whole crew keeps laughing at me, because I'm like, I did a thing, does that give them advantage? And they're like, advantage isn't a thing in the system. I'm like, well, yes it is. It's not called advantage, I have charm and curiosity. Twice a day I get to roll certain things with advantage. It's just called roll twice and take the higher, which is advantage. But you know what I mean? I mean the +2. Do I get to do the thing to roll to try to give him a +2 to the roll? You know what I mean? Woo!
Ooh-wee.
Swear, one of the hardest things about switching systems is remembering terminology.
Yeah. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's learning a different language. Like,
It is.
I remember when,
Not when Sauce runs it doesn't have rules.
right? But I remember when I was getting into more hardcore gaming communities and going from console gaming to PC gaming, and you pop into a game and use certain terminology, and they're like, "You're from this game, go back. You're not welcome here." And you're like, "What? Huh?" It's like, "Well, you said this, and that's not what it's called." And then the game designers call it this, but we actually call it that. And so get out, because you're not welcome. You're from that Powder Puff game. But ignoring the gatekeeping aspect of it, there is, like, in any circle of interest, there are terminologies, and syntaxes, and an ebb and flow of things that you gotta get a handle on. And the more systems you expose yourself to, the easier it is to switch between.
So, Vivian Ribbanadza just said, it's like how X can be in 3 different places depending on the console. And look, now number one, can we just all agree that A and B can be in the same spot? Can we just decide
Right.
where
like
A is and where
Nintendo.
B is? Stop.
It's killing me.
But number 2, David had to suffer my indignant wrath and rant the day that PlayStation said, actually, ours is a cross. It's not X, it's cross. And I'm like, we had one thing we all freaking agreed on. And you're trying to...
Here's the thing. It's always been cross. My camera's still fun. It says PlayStation 1.
It's X.
They literally call it the PSX.
It's also...
It's always been a cross.
It's also GIF.
Well, yeah. I'll have you know that the guy who invented the term...
Don't care. He's wrong. And you know what? It made Kay very cross. Yes, Sauce.
Got
Hey,
it.
Rex. I had a thought, and I've been completely derailed, and the cops are coming. I've got sirens in the background. David's camera is being a pain. It's a time, y'all.
Yep.
Talk, David. I've got sirens.
K is cross because there was a comment earlier. Ribbananza said it's like how X can be in 3 different places depending on the console. And we started talking about how Nintendo keeps... Listen, Nintendo, we understand that you're the great granddaddy of video games as we know them. But you keep switching around where you put your A and B, and that's got to stop.
Did you just mansplain the conversation to chat?
Well, no. Rex asked
Okay.
why is K cross.
Okay.
Listen, I have done my fair share of mansplaining, but in this particular instance, I am innocent. But
I just had a moment of like, wait.
But then we got on to the X button, and I was like, the X button only exists on 2 consoles, and incurred Kay's wrath because she will punch me in the face the next time I see her, because on the Sony PlayStation, the official listing of it from day one is that it is not an X, It is a cross, which makes sense because the whole theme is shapes, not letters. And X is a letter, but cross is a shape.
X marks the spot. It's a shape too.
Colloquially, yeah. So yes, this is an argument I will not get into.
But I don't know how many of you have followed the Spelljammer thing. There is a race, a playable race in Spelljammers that are like hippo people. They're big. They got all of the hit points. They have a low armor class. You can hit them easy. You just have to hit them a lot. And I don't remember how, because it's not the Gith, but it sounds very like the Gith, which is a problem because Gith Yankee. They're not the Gith. I think they're the Gilf?
Love gilfs.
They have, canonically, they argue over is it said Gilth or Jilth. Like, part of the thing is that they, within their own species, argue over how the G is said, as a direct nod to GIF or GIF.
That is awesome.
It is joy. It is pure joy. Yeah, we're not getting into St. Andrew's Cross here, so,
No. Because, like, a cross, which cross you're talking about depends on who you put on it. You know, you put the long-haired carpenter on it, and that's gonna give you one. And
yeah, it is definitely GIF. I will go to my grave. It is GIF.
yeah. The creator went to his grave saying GIF.
And he was
so...
Anyway, yes, tabletop RPGs. Cops are coming for me. We brought up
Yep.
the St. Andrew's Cross, and now the Twitter police are on their way. But, yes, David, do you have, because we're nearing the end of this time.
Do I have an opinion about the graphics interlace format? Yes, I do.
Before I turn things over to David, chat, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, or advice about tackling a new TTRPG system, please throw them in. I shouldn't have crossed the NYPD. Well, you know, they shouldn't have crossed me. How's that? Never X the NYPD.
It's a cross. Thank you, Sony.
Chat, thank you for being amazing. I am sad that our YouTube folks won't get to see the chaos that is here. But, TTRPJs do sound crazy. That's a thing. TTRP GIFs would be a disaster. Chat, if you have any thoughts, questions, or closing statements around learning new TTRPG systems, please shout them out. David, what are your thoughts or closing statements?
My closing statement is, one, definitely explore different systems for a lot of reasons that we covered. But in addition to that, I encourage you to go out and explore the community, because the guy behind the counter, the gal behind the counter, the NB behind the counter at your gaming store is going to be super excited to talk to you about whatever cool thing that they stole a store copy of and played with over the weekend. They're going to be super excited about the regulars they have that built a system and made 6 copies of the game that they're now selling for $5 just so that people can play it.
Which,
And
by the way, if you all don't know the history of Monopoly and how that game was made and traveled, please look up the history of Monopoly. It's fascinating. Continue.
and it's very easy to go to these places and find not just someone who works there, but tables full of people who have more experience and more perspectives and more opinions that can lead you to things that you didn't know exist that you will enjoy.
JD Lady says, a friend is trying to write a new TTRPG system. Any advice anyone would like to pass along? So, I know a couple people who have created their own TTRPG systems for multiple various reasons. From Gabe was like, I'm running a social system on stream and I don't want anything that the players do to be wrong. So I'm writing a new system so no one can come up and say they played the game wrong because the system doesn't exist outside of this one particular game. Which, totally valid reason to make up a new system, in my humble opinion. We had D'Angelo on several episodes ago talking about creating Emerald Templars. So before, that is a little bit difficult to answer right away because, the first question is, why are you building a new system? There's lots of systems out there, and the answer, again, might just be, I don't want anyone to tell my players that they're playing the game wrong. Again, perfectly valid. The answer might be, I'm running a horror system, and let me say that very clearly, horror system, horror game, and I don't...
Yeah, I run the other type of systems.
Yeah.
Continue.
There's a reason we're codiums. Sometimes we... And, 5e doesn't really have a great... 5e doesn't always handle horror very well. I've run a horror game in 5e, and it worked. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Maybe you say, okay, well, Call of Cthulhu is really cool, except, I don't like this. Or maybe you say, all these systems are whitewashed and colonial. Because they kind of are. And you're like,
Yep.
I want to build a system that celebrates my culture and my friends' culture and let people see themselves in the games that
Oh my
we're
god,
playing.
it knows the word Cthulhu.
That's impressive. Like, we're not getting off on this again. So
Yes.
why is the first one? Because that will help inform what are you trying to overcome. So I know originally there were a couple systems, I can't say all of them, that were going to use the Cortex system. And there were multiple issues, but in the end they kind of decided that the dice pool system didn't work for what they were wanting to build. I know some feel like one of the things D'Angelo wanted to tackle with Emerald Templars was, the D20 system makes sense if you know 5e, but it's kind of like, why a D20 system is almost like a Fahrenheit if you're used to Celsius, right? Like, why is 20 the arbitrary thing? So he wanted to build a D100 system because it's much easier to grasp. You have to hit 50 or above, and then you roll and do you hit 50 or above, as opposed to an 18 is the magic number, right? And it wanted it very easy. If you're in the top 10%, then it's a crit, and if you're in the bottom 10%, it's a crit fail, and something extra bad happens. So, as David's advice was, if you're trying to build a new system especially, play a bunch of different systems, and this goes back to something I mentioned before. Once you play a system, really sit down and ask yourself, what did I like about it, and what did I not like about it? Play crunchy games, play rules light games. We did Backwater, and I did Backwater. David didn't get to play with me, unfortunately. But Candace and I played Backwater, and Todd ran it, and it was fun, and it was a cool system, and I walked away going like, yeah, that was a solid system, the setting was cool, but that luck mechanic, yoink, that's it. If you start playing a bunch of rules light systems, like, it's often difficult to retrofit a rules light system into a more crunchy system, but maybe there's little elements of like social encounters. And again, watch a bunch of actual plays, because there are so many cool things that I've watched. I don't want to spoil it. So if you watch Dimension 20, Coffin Run, it's so good. That bronze girl ran a vampire game. It wasn't quite 5e, it was very homebrewed, vampire system. It wasn't Vampire the Masquerade. And the final battle was done with a prompt. And I won't say what it was, but there was this amazing physical element where everything that happened, the dice decided, but it wasn't displayed in, like, she didn't say, like, oh, this person's bloodied, or, oh, this is it. It was, you were watching a thing actually happen. It was really cool. Check out, is it Dread that's played with a Jenga tower?
I don't remember.
It's Dread.
I think it's Dread.
I believe it's called Dread, but you could go, there's a legally distinct Jenga tower system where all your skill checks, okay, Rex Verde says yes, so I'm pretty sure it's Dread, where all your skill checks are done, with a Jenga tower. Dread, yes. Figure out, maybe you don't do it all the time, but maybe there's certain things where you start a clock, and the timer ticking down really can add to, and maybe that's not right for everything, but if you're running a horror game, start a timer. Don't necessarily tell people why.
I've definitely done it in a home game where we're playing on Discord. I pop open, share my screen, Google the Google timer, and then set it to 5 minutes and hit start, and then say go. And then my players have to figure out whatever they need to figure out while they watch the clock tick down, and that could cause some sweating.
And the other thing, the final thing I'll end on is, if you are building a system, the best thing you can do is run it a lot. Build it, run it until you feel like you've gotten a decent grip on it. Humble yourself, because this is really hard, because you need people to not just play your game, but give you feedback. And I'm in a game with a GM whom I love. I'm not going to out this individual. I love them. They were trying a leveling system that was a little weird and inspired by other things, and I really enjoyed parts of it, and I really didn't enjoy other parts of it. So I'm over here, like, we finish a session, and they're asking, hey, what do you think of this? And I'm like, I thought it was really cool because I'm playing a Grave Domain cleric in this, and I don't have the Sentinel at Death's Door ability yet at this level. For those of you who don't speak fluent nerd,
Right.
Sentinel at Death's Door is an ability of the Graveyard Cleric where, as a reaction, if someone rolls a nat 20 within a certain space, you can cancel that nat 20. They don't
Zoinks.
re-roll, it still hits, but it's no longer a crit.
Zoinks.
You just take their crit away. And
That's me.
it feels really good when you get to do it.
Right.
So, God, that would have been, I can't talk about that. That episode hasn't aired yet. So, I was getting that ability the next session, or the next level, and they were trying to figure out ways that we could, like, hint at what's coming and, like, naturally show character growth. So an enemy rolled a nat 20, and I'm like, I look at them, and my eyes do a weird, I've got flower petal eyes in that game. I love GMs who let me be weird, and my eyes did a weird thing. And they're like, oh no, did you cancel it? I'm like, not yet, but like, I'm doing this to seed towards my next level. And that was really cool. But it also meant we all had to really be aware of what was coming next level. We had to seed a lot of stuff. We had to keep track of a lot of things. Crit robber, yes. And so I'm trying to like over here like sandwich it. Like I really enjoyed that moment of like, oh, I see it. I can't do anything yet, but I'm, that was really narratively juicy. But like I said, there was a lot of other stuff to keep track of. So I'm over here trying to sandwich it, and someone else is like, I frickin' hate it, if I'm honest. I'm like,
Wee.
and the thing is, when you ask someone for feedback,
You don't get it.
and it's very easy and natural and human to be like, you called my baby ugly. Fuck you. You're not. No. If you're building something new, be it a system, a campaign, you got to be ready for people to be like, I didn't like that thing. And you have to humble yourself. And this is where it gets extra challenging because some people are going to say, I don't like it because it's not 5e. And you know what? That's not good feedback. But if someone says, I frickin' hated it because blah, 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 blah. Sometimes someone might even, like with me, come in with something valid and say, I don't like dice pool systems. Cool, then you're not the person to playtest this. Because I've done my research, I've done my planning, and dice pools will work for this. And you have to be able to... I called it, it's a community manager skill that we have to use a lot, and I call it thick skin, soft heart. You have to listen to people, but you also have to have a thick enough skin to be able to go like, that's not aimed at me personally, and that isn't, like, that is just this person, and they're not wrong, but it doesn't apply to what I'm doing. So, playtest it often, take that feedback even when it hurts, but also filter that feedback, because if you try to design a game by committee, it's going to be a mess. If you try to design a game that every single person is going to like, it's not going to work. Which again is why I said very clearly at the beginning, figure out what problems you're trying to solve. What is your goal? Because if you don't have that, that's how you're going to start filtering. This feedback is valid but not relevant, versus this is what I actually need. And then the final and really important thing, as soon as you've got your basics down, as soon as you are really sure what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the basics of your stuff, build a quick start and give it to other people to run. Because if you can't, A, it'll help you explain your system, but B, if you can't explain your system, you gotta work on your system.
I have one thing to add to that.
Go.
When you're confident in your system and you're further along, first try to break it yourself, and second, find someone to break it. Because games are full of unintentional consequences and combinations that you don't necessarily foresee. For instance, one of the most dangerous things that a low-level D&D player can have is a cow. And I forget the interaction, but it's like one of the mage spells is you can create an object, or I think it's a druid spell, but like you can create a creature or churn a
Summon
creature from one
animals.
into
Summon
right.
animal.
So
Summon animal and a fly spell.
right. And with the way falling damage works in D&D, a falling cow has such ballistic energy and such destructive force that it doesn't just kill everything on land. it doesn't just sink boats, but it's also a depth charge. That thing goes fast enough that if there are submarines in your D&D world or some subterranean creature, like if Cthulhu down there having a swim, you can drop cows on him and kill him.
Or the
And
other one is if you get underwater, summon cow, and then I forget which spell it is, but there's a spell that makes you walk on water, and if you're underwater, you shoot. Same thing. It shoots up, goes right through. Can't be stopped. Megan Kendrick dropped a Tarask on Asmodeus. That was an amazing episode. I don't know if you've seen the artwork of it, but Todd commissioned artwork for her as a gift. Continue.
And it's not about making it so that your game is airtight and these things can't happen. It's making sure that things break in a way that you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know a bunch of people at Wizards of the Coast watched the TikTok or heard the story about how someone made cows into like ballistic, and they just laughed and laughed and laughed. But you don't want to put your players or your GMs in a position whereby there's something in your game that can be exploited that ruins the fun for everyone.
Right.
So get someone to break your game.
Find your most chaotic player.
Yep. Luckily, I got one on deck.
Someday. Now, the itch isn't as bad because actually this character was transformed into Soul and is in the Emergency Power podcast and doesn't break the game, as still pretty bananas. But don't break the game. Soul was originally conceived for 5e and was a Ronk, a rogue monk, and by level 6,
they're impossible.
They're
cheating.
Someday I will get to play my Ronk. I really want to play my Ronk. Not because I break the game, this character's story is in my head. And also I just kind of want to see if they keep up. Because also, 3 levels and 3 levels at level 6. Everyone else is getting their level 6 perks. Do they actually keep up? But also, pretty sure this character's going to wreck shop. And I stumbled into that. I didn't go, I'm going to break the game. I just stumbled into it and went, oh no, I think this breaks the game. David, does this break the game? And he's like...
Also, for anyone watching, if you are a wizard or sorcerer and a monk shows up in your party, save a slot for haste. Trust me, save, because that combination just gets more broken as time goes on.
As if you're in Starfinder and you have a Solarian on your team and you're an envoy, or you are a mystic, I believe there is a Starfinder version of haste that can be put on the Solarian, and then there's a mystic thing where they can put it on, and so no matter what you do, it does I think it's an extra 6 damage, no matter what. Any kind of thing you do does an extra 6 damage. It's bananas. It's really fun. Hasted monks are wicked. Okay. This was a meme. This is a thing that's on the internet, but I'm going to recount it because it's one of my favorite stories of new party, right? Everyone's still kind of getting the feel for each other, and they come up against the first big bad. It's not the big bad of the campaign, but it's the first big bad of the campaign. And Big Bad starts monologuing about all the crap he's going to do. And the wizard's like, you know what? This guy's making a lot of sense. And everyone's like, brr? And he's like, yeah. I think I agree with this guy. I cast haste on the big bad. And the GM's eyes light up. And so it's going, and everyone's freaking out, and traitor already, was this planned? Did we know? And then it gets to be the big bad's turn. And the wizard says, cool, I drop haste. David, what happens when you drop haste?
When you drop haste, if I remember correctly, you lose your action on that turn. And does it bump your initiative down?
It doesn't bump your initiative down, but you basically... It's like crashing after a Red Bull. You lose your entire turn. I think you can't even take reactions. Like, it's...
Nope. You don't get bonus actions, you don't get actions, you don't get free actions, and you don't get reactions. Like, you do nothing. You just sit and wait. And if 6 people want you erased, then you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. So, yeah, that had to require, but well, so I think that the summary to that was from then on, every single big bad had a 45 insight.
Yep.
Stuff a mind flayer in there. Far fewer ubiquitous resistances. So, yes.
That reminds me, I need to put a mind flare somewhere. Anyway, continue.
Oh no. You're super into horror lately, so I'm really afraid where this mind flayer is going to show up.
Yeah, it'll be yeah.
So, I have been watching chat pretty closely. I don't think I saw any other questions. JD Lady, I hope that answered yours. If you all have any other questions or comments before we go, please throw them out now, but I think we are wrapping up. David, I know I asked you this before, but then we got off onto playtesting, or building TTRPG systems. Any closing thoughts on learning new systems outside of please play them? Which, yes, please try new systems, even if you only play them once.
Yeah, like I said before, use it as an excuse to explore the community and to go talk to people and learn about their experiences.
And you know, my advice, as always, find an actual play, especially if it's rules light. This is less so, but find an actual play. Start getting a feel for what the pacing of this game is, what's the normal things around this game, and obviously every table's going to be a little bit different. If you do decide to do your research and go down the research black hole like I'm prone to, don't be afraid to communicate with your GM of like, hey, you know, I'm finding it really difficult to build a character in VTM. And they're probably going to say, oh yeah, here's the thing, or let me help. Don't be afraid to say, this game has a massive history. How much of it do I need to know? Because they might say, oh, actually, don't worry about anything other than this. Or it's completely homebrew. YouTube videos, figure out if you have a specific thing you're getting stuck on, go find a video. People are amazing and will explain it and will walk you through it. And you'll probably still get a thing or two wrong. And that's okay. It's collaborative storytelling. Again, really good GMs will adhere to the idea that the rules are there to facilitate the story, not the other way around. Reach out to other people in the community. You know, I am always so excited to help people learn new systems or create characters, or if they're like, I don't understand this, or hey, I want to play this kind of character, I don't know how to root it in the world. That's my jam. I know I'm not the only one. So go find those people. Throw it out. Ask Twitter. Ask Reddit. Ignore the haters. Forget them. Anyone who's a gatekeeper can just wander off. Legend. Oh my god. So for those of you who don't know, part of the reason I'm in the career that I am in is because I met Larry Dixon very young, and he like took me under his wing and was a mentor and encouraged me. So it's even more funny when Saucefire says Larry Dixon may have seduced Tiamat in one of the Mercy Road games. I mean, seducing a dragon is old hat. Seducing Tiamat
is yeah, that's a...
Seducing my Goyle is a thing. A lot of games will have quick starts, especially if it's a rules light system. Honestly, probably all you need is the book or the quick start. Find an actual play, find a YouTube video, ask your friends, hang out in a Discord, and if you're really, really worried, if you really want to, there's so many cool... I think there's like 4 or 5 people in chat right now who have a Discord that at least has a TTRPG section. Start reaching out to your TTRPG friends. Hey y'all, I'm gonna do a game. I'm gonna do a stream. It's going to be this system. I don't know it. What do I need to know? Will anyone run me one? Because most people will love an excuse to carve out 3 hours of, oh yeah, I did this cool thing that I built for my table. We played it 3 years ago. I haven't been able to run this module since. It's a great one-shot. Let's heckin' go. Who's available Saturday? And again, a good GM will do more to walk you through a new system than just about anything. And
Absolutely.
if you're a GM, thank you for being awesome and teaching people new systems and being patient. And if you are a more experienced player and you're playing with someone who's new to the system, thank you for sharing the spotlight and not being a gatekeeper and drawing people in, because this is how we're going to put new blood and new excitement and new ideas and new mechanics and new quirks into the system. Because while I love 5e, I'm really excited for 5.5.
Yeah. Yeah. Soon.
And I think that about wraps up this episode. Chat, thank you all. You have been amazing. Like, you are always amazing. You've just been so entertaining tonight. Thank you to everyone who always comes by and hangs out and is so supportive. Thank you to those of you watching on YouTube for the likes, the subscriptions to YouTube, for comments. If you have topics you'd like us to cover, please give them a shout out. And next week, we're gonna have a very special guest. Very special guest. Should we tell everyone who this very special guest is?
Absolutely.
Or should we, like, drag it out a little longer?
We should. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. I'm asking the very special guest.
Right.
And now we have to fill dead air as we wait for the delay between when we talk and when it hits Twitch to see what very... Let the people decide. Well, then I'm letting David decide. Saucefire is going to be our very special guest next week. We're going to talk about charity games, as well as maybe something else. I don't know. Yes, we are going to spill the sauce. We're going to spill all of the sauce.
There's so much I could do with that. Anyway, continue.
We are so excited to have Saucefire next week. David, who are you and what is this?
I am David Lee. You can find me on Twitter at FullRubberDucky. This is the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show, where every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Eastern, we talk about TTRPGs, big and indie. We talk about how to be a better player, a better game master, how to have more fun, how to connect with communities, and we focus on being inclusive so that everyone can have a seat at our tables.
That was beautiful. I'm Kay. I do way too much TTRPG stuff. I now do tarot readings for TTRPG characters and campaigns. You can find that on Ko-fi. Every other Wednesday, with the other Wednesday being tomorrow, starting August 3rd, we have new episodes of the Emergency Power Podcast, where I play Soul, who is I have so much fun being the worst. They're terrible. There's been amazing, juicy things happening, and I can't wait to post some of our juiciness to the twits. We're having a good old time over there. Starting August 11th, I'm going to be on an unannounced series. You're going to have to just hang tight for more info on that. On August 14th, you can find me on Tales from the Tavern, where I'm going to be talking about the Emergency Power Podcast. I'm going to be over on Gamer Mom Luna's channel. And end of the month, August 29th, it's going to be the first episode of The Halls of the Mad King, a horror campaign over on the Red Hare Inn. So I hope I will see you all there. We will see you all here next week, I hope, with Saucefire, where we're going to talk about some cool stuff. I'm sure it's going to be chaotic, because it can't not be chaotic with sauce. Thank you, chat. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you to everyone watching on YouTube. Be sure to join the Discord. Follow me on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Thank you all. You are amazing. I'm gonna flip us over to the end screen and we're gonna find someone to raid. Thank you all. Have a great night. We'll see you next week. Bye.